Smoke signals, teen drug trends today. We're excited about this webinar series. So if you've missed any of the others, I really encourage you to go and check those out. This has been a great webinar series. We do this each and every year. Well, it's the second year, and we'll continue doing this every year. So glad that you're all taking a little time out today. Here's my hope today as we talk about this topic. This is talked about a lot. We hear these things a lot. But here's my goal is that we understand a little bit of why these things are happening. We know a lot of what our kids are doing, and we're going to talk about this. A lot of these things are active in our schools and in our communities. You're dealing with this in a lot of different areas in the work that you do. So my hope today is to take just a little aerial view of understanding some of the underlying reasons so that we can begin to tackle the bigger problem by going to the root of it all together. So I want to take a look at a few things today as we talk about just the different drug trends that our students are dealing with right now. It's also important to understand that our students are starting early. We know that addiction begins at the age of 13 is the very first use on average for addiction. 10.9% of eighth graders are using substances, which is just terrifying to me. 19.8% of 10th graders are using substances, and 31.2% of 12th graders are using substances. So we know, all of us understand that this is happening earlier and earlier in the lives of our kids. And that's why early detection, early education, and early prevention is so important. So the work that we do, my name is Brandon, and I am with Alabaster for Tomorrow. And the work that we do is prevention work, specifically in the city of Alabaster. We have a federal grant that we manage through the Drug Free Communities grant, and we work inside the school. We work with our coaches in our school systems, our teachers in our school systems, businesses. We work with the city council, the first responders. The goal is to get everybody together to work to educate in this area, because we know that students are now tempted, and through social media, they're connected like never before, even faster, getting a hold of all the different things that are happening. It's more important that we work together and even faster. So this is what I like to say to encourage us a little bit. I love the quote from Back to the Future that says, "Your future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. Your future is whatever you make it. So make it a good one." The great philosopher, Doc Brown. I love this quote because here's the hope and here's the encouragement is that everything that we do, we have an opportunity to intercept the future of young people. That with every educational program, with every outreach, with everything that, every conversation, anything that we do, we have an opportunity to literally change the future of young people. So I think it's powerful that we understand the perspective of the power that we have to make a difference. So today, just by taking a few moments to invest in education and understanding, you're making a difference in changing the life of a young person. So let's talk about some of the factors that contribute to teen drug use. Obviously, we all know this is nothing new, but peer pressure. 55% of teenagers who try drugs self-report doing so because of peer pressure. Regardless of how old you are today, you face peer pressure, and so do our young people. That doesn't change. Even as adults, you face some form of pressure. Another contributing factor is coping mechanisms. Our students, our kids, they just don't know how to cope. We have a lack of coping skills. 61% of adults, listen, have experienced at least one adverse childhood experience impacting their ability to cope. So even talking with adults, when they're asked about their coping mechanisms and what caused them to do some of the things that they do, many of those go back to even early childhood. So we understand the power of getting to a child early on, impacting literally the rest of their life. In 2021, we know that the Surgeon General issued a public health advisory calling it a devastating mental health crisis among young people. I don't know if you've seen this recently, but they have also declared a mental health crisis among parents, saying that it's so difficult to parent our kids that we have a national emergency in that as well. So if you're a parent, you're getting a little help there, get a little props for all the hard work that you put in. But understanding that our kids are struggling, that our kids are coping with so much and they don't know how to cope. And so when you're looking for a solution or when you're looking for an answer, it opens up the door for substances to easily come in and be a part of their life. Suicide rates, we see this impacted as well. Students ages 10 to 14. We saw an increase from 2007 until 2018 of 222%. Now, in just a moment, I want to connect some of these dots to see how in the world did we get to such an increase when it comes to suicide rates of young people, ages 10 to 14. That's devastating. The second leading cause of death, suicide rates of those ages 12 to 24 grew 60% from 2007 to 2018. So we're seeing an uptick not only in the inability to cope with our coping mechanisms, but also the suicide rates are increasing as well. So the whole issue here is that from the very foundation of children growing up from elementary school all the way through adolescence, that the struggles have only gotten worse and they don't know how to cope with it in their lives. So let's take a look at what I think is probably the biggest factor is the impact of social media. Now, many of you who are a part of this, you do this work, you're in the lives of young people, whether you're a mom, a grandparent, a teacher, an educator, you know this. Influence on teen behavior, screenagers is a term that has been given to this generation. Because if you stop and think about it, this generation are the first generation born into an all digital world. Many of us can remember the development of technology. Some of you can remember back in the AOL days. You remember when you had to log on and you would tie up the phone line, or you would wait 15 minutes for it to connect to the internet. We can all remember these incremental changes looking back at what it's done to our culture. But for many of us now, these students, this is just a normal way of life. They are immediately connected to anyone and everyone anywhere in the world at any point in time. That means any piece of information, that means any substance, that means anything that they want to get a hold of, it's at their fingertips. Many report having nomophobia. This is a phobia or a fear of being away from our phones. So if you just be honest, raise your hand. How many of you struggle with this as well? 66% of the population actually struggles with nomophobia, the fear of being away from our phones. 72% of people report being within 5 feet of their smartphones the majority of the time. And I think that's probably true for all of us. So even as adults, when we are connected to our devices all the time, we've grown into this. This has been something that we have adapted to. Yet our young people, this is something that is absolute normalcy for them. So we understand that they have a rapid consumption of information. So what psychologists are telling us is it's impacting the way that our young people are learning. It's impacting literally the way the brain begins to process information, the way the brain takes it in, the way the brain processes that information, and then the way the brain computes and uses all that information. Social media alters the brain's development in unknown ways, meaning that because these are the first of all digital world, we still don't fully know the impact that it's had on their development. Research investigates impacts on problem solving and concentration. So we're seeing that there's problem solving issues, concentration issues, increased addiction and risk. Taking behaviors are observed among teens. The brain is being trained and triggered in new ways by technology. So what does that mean? It just simply means that we're working with young people, trying to help them with their thinking, with their feelings, with their emotions, with their development. And all of these other things that we're talking about today are put on top to make it even more difficult. But we're dealing with kids who have never experienced some of the formation of their lives the way that they're experiencing it today. And I think much of this started in 2007 with the iPhone. The iPhone was released in June 2007. And then the App Store following a year later. A year later, 2008, is really when the iPhone started taking off with the development of apps. And this has literally changed communication and changed our world forever. In 2010, Instagram released. And this is important because we began to see this social media world, this new life, this new way that we interact with likes and the way people get their value and the way that their self-esteem is formed across digital platforms. Instagram released in October and gained 25,000 users in 24 hours and then 1 million by December. As of April of 2024, this year, there are over 2 billion monthly active users. So that's safe to say that the likes, the comments, all of the interactions across social media are incredibly influential. We know this with our young people. But when you begin to take an aerial view, compile all this together, you can understand how detrimental it is to the forming of their self-esteem into their life. 2013, within a year, Facetune was ranked a #1 app in the world in the photo and video category. Now, I don't know how many of you know about Facetune. If you've used this before, you don't have to raise your hand if you have, but Facetune gives you the ability to totally change your appearance in every possible way. So if you have any imperfection that you don't like about yourself, if you want to get rid of those wrinkles, if you want to change your eye color, if you want different hair color, if you want to change the shape of your body, you can do all of this with Facetune. And so students are now getting their identity from social media platforms. They're now giving tools to change themselves, to morph into who they want to be, to present the person that they want to present online, and give that away to everyone that's around them. And I think it sets a precedence of danger because it's undermining who we are as people. Then in 2015, Snapchat released the filters that we all know today and have fun using on Snapchat. And the filters were another way, very simple, to just change our appearance to become whomever we wanted to be. So the influence of Facetune, I think, is incredibly important to understand, especially with the development of young ladies. Over 200 million downloads show the popularity of face editing and photo editing. The app is used, obviously, to restructure the face, whiten teeth, smooth skin. You can tan the skin. It normalized touch-ups. So in other words, most people now, before they post a picture, they're doing touch-ups like it's absolutely normal and there's not a problem with it. 71% of users apply edits before posting their images on Instagram. So that means 71% of people don't have the confidence in themselves to take a photo as they are and present it to the rest of the world. Now, we already know, everybody, come on, you took 10 or 15 pictures just to get the one that you posted anyway. And then it was touched up even before that one photo was posted for everyone to see. It's created self-image issues. It's had an impact on mental health. And this is the formation of our young people as they start off learning to be comfortable with their own skin, learning to navigate their peers and their insecurities. And we're giving them tools and resources and normalizing the ability to literally change who they are. This is important to understand. This has become so commonplace that this is an actual photo from a Florida mom who her 10-year-old son had school portraits, just like all of our kids do at school. And the school offered retouching of the photos. They said, would you like us to retouch the photo if there's any imperfections that you would like to be taken away? And the mom said, sure. So in other words, if the 10-year-old had a cut on his face or, they're kids. But instead, what came back, if you can notice closely to the photo, is that they actually took away the child's freckles as if that was an imperfection that needed to be removed. This is who the child is. The child has freckles, but this company took this away. And so retouching is now such the norm of our culture that school photos are now offering this for our kids. So I hope you're beginning to see that just some of the underlying problems that we have with the development of our young people and the signals that we're communicating to these kids that something's wrong with them, so that something needs to be changed or something needs to be adjusted to make them better than they are naturally. And when you begin to communicate this to a young child who is forming their self-esteem and their self-worth, and you begin to put this in their head and they have to live this way, it opens up more trouble and more problems. This is Instagram face. The very bottom right picture is how she started. And all of these other images are where she ended. So working hard to transform herself into who she really wanted to be so she could present herself some way online to other people the way that she wanted them to see her. Snapchat dysmorphia. This is important as well. Some of you can remember a day when you used to know that celebrity magazines were touched up And no one wanted to talk about it because no one wanted to really admit that they had their photos touched up. Movie stars didn't want to admit it. But eventually it became known. So many ladies would go to, say, a plastic surgeon, and they would take an image of a magazine with their favorite stars, and they would say, I want to look like this. But what now these plastic surgeons are communicating is that people will walk in with a Snapchat filter of themselves, and they want plastic surgery done to look like themselves in their Snapchat filter. So this is a real person. You can see before surgery. You can see what she looks like with the filter applied. And then you can see what she looks like after surgery. The plastic surgeon did a pretty good job. They matched her up pretty well to her filter. But this is the mentality. This is the communication. This is what we're teaching our kids. This is how we are raising our kids to see their self-worth and their appearance. And then the second thing I think is big outside of social media is I just think the role of family. I think we're seeing such a dysfunction in our family dynamics for whatever reason, but we're seeing broken families in a way that students are responding, and it's affecting their formation. Culture minimizes today, I believe, the importance of family. Some of you have heard of the divorce parties, where they celebrate divorces, where they say, you know, this is my new life, and they throw a party, and it's a big deal. And they do this in the face of their children. Now, I understand there's different reasons, and I won't get deep into that, but I'm talking about the impact on our children. In one study, 70% of youth in state-operated facilities were from single parent homes. Think about that. 70% of youth inside state-operated facilities were from single-parent homes. 1 in 4 children live without a father in the home. And so I think this impacts the development of our kids. 4 out of 5 parents said their kids were fine with divorce, but 75% of kids experienced anxiety, depression, and eating disorders, all because of what was happening inside of their home. Again, I'm not here to talk about all the reasons why, there's different cases for every circumstance, but I do want to point out the impact that we're seeing this have on the development of our children. Data shows that they are 33% less likely to repeat a class and 43% more likely to get A's if they're in a two-parent home. So just understanding that not only is social media playing a difference in the formation and the development of our kids, but so is our families. And so I think that's why it's so important for our students to be surrounded by positive people with positive messages who are able to listen to them, encourage them, and help them. And we'll talk about that a little bit more today as well. So let's talk about some of the substances that our students are using. And by no means will you be surprised, but alcohol is still one of the top used substances among young people. It's just because it's easily, they can get it easily. There's not such a negative connotation to alcohol among young people. Many young people see their family use alcohol. That it's witnessed on television. It's in movies. It's celebrated in such a way, and then it's so easy to get. So they don't see really that there's a problem with the alcohol. What we understand is that their brain is not fully developed. They don't have what I call the ability to predict the future yet. You and I, we can predict the future. I don't know if you know that or not, but if you look at a hot stove, you know if you touch that stove, you're going to get burned. You have the ability to predict the future. But a young person without their brain fully developed does not have that ability. They have to touch the stove, be burned, and then understand, oh, it's hot, I'm going to be burned. So what I often try to communicate to young people when it comes to substances, when it comes to alcohol, is understanding, hey, your brain is not ready for this. Your body is not ready for this. This is why you're told don't drink alcohol, regardless of how your peers feel about it, regardless of what you think it's going to do to you. You need to understand your brain is not ready for it yet. I don't know if you know this or not, the 7 stages of intoxication. First, you have subliminal. This is when it's taking effect and you don't know that it's taking effect yet. And if you teach this to young people, they understand the process a little more, because when they start drinking alcohol and they don't feel it and they just continue going, that's how they get in trouble really, really quick. So I teach them, look, it's happening before you even know that it's happening. Then when you get euphoria, that's that first hit of dopamine. That's when it's beginning to kick in. You begin to feel the alcohol take place. Then you have the excitement. Well, this is the point to where drunkenness is happening. And then you move to confusion, which is getting you deeper into that state, into a stupor, into a coma, and into death. And this is the 7 stages of intoxication. I think it's good for all of us to understand it, to be able to be aware of it, to be able to point it out, and to be able to understand it as it's happening and explain this to young people because they have no idea the impact of alcohol. It can take as little as 30 seconds for the first drink of alcohol to make its way through the bloodstream all the way to the brain and to begin making a difference, impairing the life of students. So alcohol is still a really big issue. Marijuana trends, they're all over the place. And this right here is really the focus of where most of the industry is going. Most of the industry today is focusing on serving our students marijuana products. Marijuana is the second most used drug in Alabama, with its usage rates at the highest levels of 30 years. One, because we're seeing a shift in the way that the perception, the harmful nature of it, the amount of products that are being served, now the amount of public stores that you can buy marijuana products in. But the difference is THC levels have significantly increased from 2 to 5% in the years 1980 to 2001. Now it's 90%. So in other words, the potency level is from 2 to 5% years past. Today, it's up to 90%. That's why if you hear one say it's not your grandparents' marijuana, well, this is why, because the potency level is so different. And our kids don't understand that. They need to understand that it's not what they have heard about before. Then you have the delivery methods for the kids. You have it in gummies, beverages, cooking oils, chocolates, cereals, pills, and even condiments. So you can get it things like ice cream, brownies, ketchup, all these different ways that it can be delivered to our kids. And much of this stuff you can even get from, say, Amazon. Teens use marijuana for its chill feeling, temporary relief from anxiety and depression, but obviously it poses risks like addiction and psychosis. So helping a student understand why they use to begin with, many students do respond. Alcohol, marijuana, even vapes, they respond because it takes the edge off. They respond because it makes them feel just a little bit better. It goes back to those coping mechanisms that we talked about earlier, that if a student doesn't learn how to cope in a healthy way, then they look for something to be able to help them do that. Adults do the same thing. It's just the students aren't prepared to make these kinds of decisions. So when we understand that students are feeling this pressure in their world of social media, they're attached to it 24/7. They're gaining their self-esteem from it. It's where their friends are. They're living off of how many likes and how many comments and what those are. And then they're having trouble at home. They're having trouble at school. They don't know how to cope. So suddenly they find themselves interacting with all of these substances simply to help make them feel a little bit better. So you can see the danger of why it matters so much. These are some of the different delivery methods. Many of you have probably seen this at some time before. It looks like normal candies. You look like it's got sour crawlers in there. Looks like gummies, Lucky Charms, Cheetos, but all of these are marijuana products. These are all different delivery methods that our students can order. And we have to be aware of this because if you're not, they could be sitting right in front of you with all of these products. They could be sitting in class. They could be sitting at home at the table, and we have no idea. You think they're eating a box of Nerds, but they're all marijuana products. So it's important to understand the trends. Let's talk about vaping for just a moment. Obviously, this is another big issue for many of our communities. I know our community in the city of Alabaster, this was one of the biggest trends that we saw. One thing that I think is important to note is that prior to the pandemic, we would notice in our community, students would gather in large groups for vaping. And it was sort of the cool thing to be doing. It's just the kids gathered together. That's what they wanted to do. It was a peer pressure thing, everybody hanging out, being cool. The problem is coming out of COVID, returning back to school, a shift that was noticed was that these large crowds weren't gathering together to do this. Suddenly, you have a student in the bathroom in a stall alone, vaping simply because now they are addicted to the vape and they can't get through the day without it. So a trend from students who were doing something to be a part of the crowd, to have fun, to be cool, has suddenly shifted to having to do it because of an addiction. So we now have a young generation of kids who are addicted to vaping. So I want us to shift sort of our mindset to understand kids aren't just doing it now just because it's the cool thing to do in their peer group, but we have a young, addicted demographic of kids because they've been doing this for a long period of time. So our community, we've made some adjustments to try to help these kids. We have secession classes to help these kids get educated about the dangers of vaping, and then actually to help them overcome the habit and to stop vaping altogether. So I would encourage you, if you could do something like that in your community, to do that. I do have good news, though. It is important to understand that for the very first time, that e-cigarette usage has declined among young people. Now, that is exciting news. It was 7.7% in 2023, and it dropped to 5.9% in 2024. That's the lowest that we've seen in a decade. Part of the contributing factors to this decline in vaping, even though it's still rampant, even though it's still a really big issue, part of the reason in the decline is because many of you saw what happened with Juul, who was #1 in manufacturing and delivering vapes, advertising to young people, specifically targeting our young kids. Because of what they went through, the company literally being taken to the ground level, they're not doing that anymore. So it has shifted a lot of that focus from vaping straight toward our kids. It's also important to know that 63.9%, this is high school student who used and reported wanting to quit. So as we're seeing this decline in vaping and the trends, we have some that say, hey, we really want to quit. There's a desire to get past this. 67.4% of students tried to quit last year. So we're seeing positive movement. I think not only in the downfall of Juul and the advertising, but also the work that many of our communities are doing in trying to educate our young people about the dangers of vaping. I think these things are working. So I want to encourage all of us to lean into it just a little bit harder because it's working. Take advantage of this opportunity right now to begin making a bigger impact, putting more effort into this, explaining the dangers, and then getting these young people in classes that can help them overcome the addiction that they have. Many of you have seen this image before. If you've not, I want you to take a look at this. This is the inside of a vape. And this is devastating to a student when they see this because they've been taught that much of the vapes are just fluid. You know, they're not harmful to them. They're just, many parents will think it's just flavor, you know, and they don't understand what's literally inside the vape itself as it heats up and moves inside the body. You have lead, you have acetone, you have nickel, you have formaldehyde, all of these different things that just make up the very technology of the vape itself. So not only is what's going inside the vape dangerous, but the vape itself, as it breaks down and enters the lungs, is dangerous in itself. This is powerful for young people to understand. So let's talk about some of the emerging drugs, some of the things that are sort of new that maybe that you're seeing that are an uptick in your community. I think this is important because this, I think, is where, as we see, sadly, as we see vapes begin to decline, some of these things are what we're seeing replace it. So one is THC vape, which is THC consumption through a specific vape for THC. The cannabis vape market is growing and is the second largest segment in that industry. This is important to understand because as you learn where the market is shifting, when you see where the stores are going, when you see what they're ordering, the products inside the gas stations, inside of our vape shops, you can understand where the trends are moving because this is what they're going to serve to our young people. And so as of right now, we see the cannabis market beginning to increase as the vape market is showing a small sense of decline among our young people. As more states are moving toward the legalization of marijuana, the cannabis industry is increasingly capitalizing on this trend. That simply means the cannabis market is banking on more states to legalize. And if they legalize, then they can have more stores, which means they can have more products. And as this rolls out and becomes more normalized, they are being prepared to sell all of our young people all of these different products that they have available to them. Gen Z and millennials make up 62.8% of all U.S. cannabis sales and 70.8% of all vape sales. So we have another generation. We have both millennials and Gen Z that this is their new Marlboro Man. You know, you can remember back in the day when everyone smoked cigarettes, and then we walked through that trying to do away with cigarettes, but we've replaced it with new things. As the vaping has gotten popular, THC vape is right behind it. Here's what's dangerous about this that we need to understand is that inside of the THC vapes is a compound called vitamin E acetate. Now, vitamin E acetate can be found in different skin creams that maybe you would put on your body, and it's not bad for you. What happens, it's a vitamin, it's vitamin E. Your body will take that and it will process what's good and it will remove what's bad through the pores of your skin. However, when it's delivered through these vapes, it has no way to leave the body. So it goes into the lungs and it has nowhere to go. So all of the harmful compounds that deliver this are stuck inside of the lungs. So what we're understanding here is that we have a brand new delivery method that has not been fully studied, that we don't know all of the harms that have come from it, much like we walk through with vaping. But we know from the beginning that the compounds that are being delivered are extremely harmful, they're extremely dangerous, and they're being trapped inside of the lungs. So this is one of the biggest harms that we see and dangers of vape, THC. The next thing I want to mention is Galaxy Gas. Some of you may remember some of this back in the day. It's nitrous oxide. This is commonly used to make like whipped cream. You can buy this at Walmart. You can buy this on Amazon. But now it's being made by, well, this is a specific brand, and they're all different flavors. You can see all the different flavors that are here, but they're being sold in stores and in vape shops. And so I don't know many people that go to a vape shop because they want to make whipped cream, you know, but nitrous oxide, this is literally like laughing gas. It's what's, if you go to the dentist and you have to be put under, like this is the type of gas that is used. But what's happening is our students are filling helium balloons with this gas, and then they're inhaling this and they're getting a temporary high from the gas. Now, the highs are very temporary. So you think 30, 60 seconds. So what happens is the students get a temporary high, and then immediately when they are sober-minded again, they fill it back up and they do it all over again. And they are temporarily paralyzing their brain over and over and over again. So this is seeing brand new popularity in different areas of the internet, social media, Snapchat, Reddit. There are so many different places where kids and adults are connecting about the best brands, the strongest brands, where to get it, all this subculture of Galaxy Gas that's happening in the trends all around us right now. So all of these young people have all of these different substances that are being put in front of them, and they're all so easy to get. I would challenge all of you to, the next time that you are beside a vape shop or something in your community, just take a look inside. Look inside the glass windows. I looked inside of one in my community recently, and there's a whole shelf full of this exact product sitting right there in the window. And I know that they're not selling this to parents that want to make, you know, whipped cream on the weekend. The only reason they have it is to sell it for this specific purpose. And so that means we just have to be more aware of these trends, and we have to be adamant about the dangers in teaching this to our young people. Mushrooms is another really big trend that is happening right now. Young adult use nearly doubled in 3 years from ages 19 to 30. So 19 to 30-year-olds, it literally nearly doubled the usage. In 2022, 7% of high school seniors reported using mushrooms. Mushrooms-related poison center calls involving teens increased by 300%. Another thing I challenge you to do is the next time you're in the gas station, and you look at all the different products that are sold, THC products and vaping products, notice how many you see that have mushroom ingredients associated with it because it's on the rise. It's being normalized now as one of the next trends of a substance to use and to sell into our communities. And it's extremely dangerous. This is Joseph Emerson. Joseph was in the news not too long ago. I believe he was 44, 45 years old, mid 40s, an airplane pilot. And Joseph had been having a difficult season of life. Not a bad guy, never been in trouble, never done anything wrong. But Joseph was just going through a difficult time in life and used some mushroom products and went into psychosis. As an airplane pilot, he can fly for free in the cockpit of an airplane. So he took a flight, and while he was on the flight, going into psychosis on mushrooms, he suddenly felt like someone was after them. The plane was going to crash. He initiated the emergency system. And now, after all of this, he is in jail. Ruined his life in one moment over a psychotic episode, just trying to find a way to cope. Now, that's a tragic story, but it really illustrates the power of substances. When we don't know what we're doing, we're taking things into our body, thinking that we can control it, and we can't. And helping a young person understand that you don't know how it's going to affect your body. You've never used something like this. It's not healthy for you, and it can get you into a whole lot of trouble. And these are real life examples of what's happening right now all around us. These are examples of some of the mushroom products. There was a Brooklyn teen that had been taking these products not long ago, was in the news from Brooklyn, and jumped out of a tall building, thankfully survived barely, but just jumped out of the window in a psychotic episode, all because of things just like this. I told you about the vape shops, the gas stations. If you look closely to them, you'll see where the trends are going. This is an ad from one of the top retailers, the distributors who sell to all the gas stations and vape shops. And this is what they said. They're embracing the mushroom revolution. They said, welcome to the exciting world of convenience store trends, where we uncover the latest products capturing the hearts of consumers. Today, we're thrilled to introduce you to the rising stars of the industry, talking about these mushrooms. And so they're banking on these products being the next big wave to be able to be sold across the United States in all of our convenience stores and in all of our vape shops. So these are the things right now that your students, that our community, our kids, our schools, that they're being faced with. So not only do we go back all the way to the common use of alcohol, understanding marijuana and vape, but we're also getting mushrooms, and we're getting all these different delivery methods of marijuana that's dangerous for our kids. The National Library of Medicine talked about these mushrooms, and it says that this mushroom is a highly poisonous mushroom. The primary effects usually involve the central nervous system, and in severe poisoning, symptoms may manifest with a coma, and in rare cases lead to death. So these mushrooms, they begin to attack the central nervous system, paralyzing that, and of course, creating the high in the process. Fentanyl, we understand the dangers of fentanyl. I won't spend a whole lot of time here, the dangers, and now how common fentanyl is. I'm still amazed at talking to young people that they're not fully aware of the dangers of fentanyl or even what fentanyl is. So I always like to take a moment and talk to students about the dangers of fentanyl and why they need to be aware of anything that they take because of things like this that could be a part of it. Fentanyl, 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine, 50 times stronger than heroin. It is currently the greatest drug threat in the state of Alabama. And of course, fentanyl deaths continue to increase. So this is incredibly dangerous for our young people. The size of fentanyl, you can see it next to that penny right there. That's a lethal dose sitting next to a penny. And of course, in comparison to other drugs as well. Fentanyl is popular among drug dealers because it's a substitute. They can create more drugs, get the same effect by using fentanyl without having to have the same amount of drugs. So they save money, they make more money, and whoever takes it, they get the same high unless it's deadly because of the fentanyl that's inside of here. So much of this is a temporary relief from anxiety and depression. So why are our students doing this? Well, we often think, well, they're just being kids. And some of them are. They're just development. They're going to try things. They're going to do things. Some of it is curiosity. But we understand that these kids, with all they're facing today and the complexities of growing up in the world that they're growing up in, they're looking for ways to overcome anxiety and depression. Substances such as alcohol and marijuana are often used by teens seeking temporary relief from anxiety and depression. Many teens turn to drugs to escape feelings of distress, believing that they provide a chill feeling or a temporary lack of anxiety and depression. So our role and our responsibility is to try to serve these young people, to try to replace those feelings and the problems and the thoughts that they're having. Instead of running to a drug or a substance, we've got to help them to be able to overcome. I love the story of Rat Park. Many of you, maybe if you've been in a session with me before anywhere, you've heard me share this. But back in the 70s, there was an experiment done with rats. And I'm not talking about Disney World, not that kind of rat, not Mickey Mouse, but they took rats and they took one and put it in a cage. And what the hope to learn was, what will a rat do if it has a choice between drugs or if it has a choice between water? So they put a rat in a cage, they gave it drug water, and they gave it regular water. And that what they found is that rat, every time by itself in that cage, would take the drug water and would drink it until it died every single time. So it was believed that, well, as humans, mankind, if we have an option, we're going to take the drugs every single time. However, later on, another researcher said, no, I don't think that's correct. I want to do it a different way. So he created what was called Rat Park. And in this park, what he did is he put rats in there with other rats, gave them other rats to play with, gave them toys, gave them the spinning wheels, things to do, things to exercise the mind on, but also gave them drug water and regular water. And this is what they found, that when the rat was placed in an environment with other rats and things to do, that sure, the rat may try the drug water, but no rat ever lost its life inside of a Rat Park because it chose the regular water every single time. And here's what that illustrates, is that our environments matter. The environment that you create wherever you are in the life of young people, your coworkers, your families, the environments that we create are incredibly powerful. So when we go back to understand that the future has not been written yet for these young people, even though we're talking about some of these depressing things, these substances that are challenging our kids, understanding that you and I have the power to create an environment to help these young people, it changes everything. And young people want help. Let me give you some encouragement today. In a survey done to Gen Z about relationships, overwhelmingly, they agreed that they feel valued by people in their life that are older than them. So if there are people who take time to invest in them and make them feel valued, that they agree with that. They also agree that the people in the positions of authority of their life, parents or teachers, have their best interest in mind. They said, I often look to those who are older than me for advice when I need to make difficult decisions, indicating that they're looking to us for advice and for information. They also said, I welcome positive criticism from those who are older than me. So young people are expressing, hey, I have an open door. I want the input. I want mentorship from people who are older than me. However, when asked if they meet regularly with someone who is a mentor, overwhelmingly they disagreed. And when asked if they meet regularly with someone whom they mentor, they also regularly disagree. That simply says they're open to it, but most of our young people say they don't have it. And so we have an opportunity to make a difference because they want it. We can help these students navigate these difficult times. They're opening the door to us. We just have to be willing to step in. So let me give you a few things, and then we'll take a few questions that I think we can help. One, I think we need to be purposely present. Wherever we are, whenever conversation we're having with a young person, be purposely present. Your body language, your eye contact, the words that you use, be specific, be on purpose. Take a moment. Don't worry about what's happening around you. Don't be thinking about what's happening 10 minutes from now, but take a moment and be purposely present. This young person is talking to me. This young person is expressing their feelings. They're expressing their day. They're talking about what's happening in their life. Be present in the moment to be able to help that person. Be curious and not critical. I think this is important. Being curious helps you stay open-minded and connected while not being overly critical. That keeps you closed and disconnected. So it's easy when a student starts to say something like we get, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. We start to become closed-minded in the situation. But just be curious. Let them talk. Don't be critical of what they're saying. Keep a curious mind because it keeps you open. It keeps you open to an open dialogue that the child goes, oh, I can be honest with you. I can express to you. I can talk to you, and they can get help from you. See and support. Make a student feel seen and supported by knowing their names. Actively listen to them and follow up with them. So see them and then support them. There is nothing that anyone loves more than being called by their name. There's power in all the students that you have. If you're a teacher, if you're a counselor, is knowing a child's name, especially a child that maybe doesn't hear their name called in a positive way many times. See a need, meet a need. We've all heard that before. Be aware of a need that's right in front of you. And if you see that need, meet that need. Not everyone can do everything, but we can all do something. And then my favorite one, celebration over complaining. I think this is important. Attitude is everything. It's the lens in which we see the world. A negative mind creates a negative heart. People hear your words, but they feel your attitude. And if we employ these into the lives of the young people that we have influence with, I know that it's going to make a tremendous difference. Sometimes we feel like we're losing. Sometimes it's feel like it's hard to keep up and to catch up with all the things that the kids are going through and the new trends and all the different stuff. But ultimately, it all comes down to a kid just wants someone to love them, to encourage them, to talk to them, and to be there for them. So regardless of what you do, take advantage of some of the local resources that you have. There are city coalitions among many of our different cities. Compact 2020, maybe many of you are familiar with them. If you're not, I would encourage you to research them. They are a great resource. The Addiction Prevention Coalition, who's obviously helping put this together today, is an incredible resource. So take advantage and let's all work together so that what we say in our community that we do today for tomorrow, because the difference we make today impacts the lives of people for tomorrow. So if I can help you in any way, I would love to be able to do that for you. I would love your feedback on this presentation. I take it seriously anytime that we have opportunity to deliver this to others. So you can scan that QR code, use 4 zeros as a way to communicate that back to me. So